Welcome to another episode of Fight the Burnout. Uh, as we always do with these, they are sponsored by Create From Why, which is our police preparation, where we teach you the tools and tricks to make sure that you have a long lasting, loving career and don't have burned out like myself and some of our guests. Because we need you, law enforcement, out there, and we're losing too many of you as it is. Uh, Today, we have a special guest, John Kelly from Florida, all the way on the other side of the world from me here in New Zealand. And we've already been having a bit of a conversation around different things. He wrote a nice book. I haven't read it yet, but I've read the intro, and holy crap, there's a lot of synergy here. So get your pen, get your piece of paper, get your ears attached on, and just take one thing away today. I always say just one thing from this interview. You can come back and listen to it again. It's always going to be here. But take one and put it into action, and you'll watch your life change. Being the beginning of the year as well, let's start strong. So here we go. Without further ado, it is John Kelly from Florida. Tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you did a long time in law enforcement, and now you're doing some different stuff, helping people out, coaching people. Yeah, tell us who you are and a bit of your experience, John.
Yeah, brother. First, thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for having me today. It's this space that we're in. It's so needed. It's so needed. We've neglected from day one the not only the physical but the mental health of those that are out there doing the job. Putting themselves in harm's way for total strangers. And I think that the chickens have come home to roost. We're seeing, unfortunately, the ramifications of not taking care of ourselves physically and mentally. So my name's John Kelly. I did 30 years in law enforcement down in South Florida. Best career you could have, if you could have scripted a career, it was mine. Road patrol deputy, field training officer, canine handler. I worked a patrol dog. I got to hunt other human beings for a living, and I got paid for it. It was working a patrol dog in South Florida in the 90s was,
Yeah.
we were jumping. It was out of control. Um, Detective Bureau, sergeant, training division, and then my final assignment, I was a motor sergeant of a 50-man motor unit. So I got to ride a Harley for the last 8 years of my career and got paid for it. So yeah, listen, I
Well,
apologize.
John, because you said that, and it sounds like you love motorcycles. I'm going to drop a little pitch, a little thing in here. Just FYI, we are running a motorcycle retreat through Arizona, 7 days riding on motorcycles, full VIP. Uh,
Wow. Look
Literally,
at this.
and teaching burnout prevention tools. It's like it's
Yeah,
off the
no,
chain. So
no,
yeah,
the conversation just got a lot more interesting.
it did definitely.
Oh my
And the
God.
importance of how motorcycle riding helps the mental health, man.
It most
It's just
certainly does, man. You
yeah.
just got to remember that you're riding a
Yeah.
motorcycle. You can't zone out
No, there's
completely.
no zoning out.
Oh my God, that's
Sorry, I had
awesome.
to interrupt there because
No,
us
man, that's
us
good.
motorheads.
That's good information, man. That's good information. No, so like I was saying, blessed career. And the craziness of all this, Chris, is that 30 years I had 3 attempts on my life. And those bad guys never came as close to killing me as I almost came to killing me.
Wow.
Doesn't
Say
make
that
sense.
again. Say that again because that's big, man.
3 attempts on my life from bad guys, and they didn't come as close to killing me as I did to killing me. I was the threat the whole time, man. I was the threat in the room. And you only realize that, right? If you're lucky enough to have people in your circle that intervene and keep you from falling and not ever getting up. And so I had that epiphany, man, that of all the things we train our people on, we don't train them on the things that are killing us. We don't train them on the things that create crazy pain and undue stress in our lives. We're great at cop shit, right?
Mm.
And we can do that stuff with our eyes closed. Listen, if you're on the job and you don't know how, I'll give you a year to start figuring things out. But after a year, if you don't know what to do, You need to get reassigned to some place that's a little busier, right? And you need to start paying attention. But after a year, you should have a pretty good grasp of the job, because
Yeah.
we're going to beat you over the head with training for the entirety of your career,
Yeah.
right? But the one thing, right? The one thing that keeps you from living a fulfilled life, that pulls you out of bed every morning, the one thing that keeps and gives you your why, not only do we not train you on, we don't even discuss. So what the hell are we doing, man? At the end of the day, it's about our relationships and the connections that we make. It's about our physical and mental health. It's about our fiscal responsibility, how we look at money. It's about all these variables in life that, if left unattended, create huge, sometimes irrevocable problems for us. So I developed a program. I get out of law enforcement. I'm like, all right, I did this for 30 years. I have some connections with this. We're not doing things any better. I was no better off on day 30 than I was on day one. There should be some progression over a 30-year career,
Definitely
one
in the
would think,
mental health side of stuff, because I'll tell you this,
right?
the people in general have changed. We've
Right.
seen
No,
I think we've
there's
seen the biggest drastic mental change in people in the last like 3 to 5 years.
right.
I reckon we've seen the biggest drastic change with COVID, with all the
Sure.
social medias, with the last 5, maybe even 10 years, definitely. I haven't seen that in my since I joined the police when I joined the police in 2011, left in 2017, 2018. Didn't see a whole lot of shift. We're seeing some in the last 12 months, but we're not seeing
Right.
in comparison. I totally agree with that.
No,
At
no.
what stage did you have that epiphany, John?
So when I was in training, believe it or not, right? So that happened at like the 17, 18, 19 year mark. So I
Yeah.
was in training. I was charged. So at the time at my agency, we were burying a deputy a year that was dying at the hands of a suspect. Okay. So new command comes in and they go, we need to stop going to funerals. I go, cool. I love the mission. Let's stop going to funerals. So they said, we're going to allow you to pick your squad, and we want you, to develop some very aggressive, empowering training to keep our people going home. And so we had an unlimited training budget. So I picked my team. Our mantra, Chris, was swift, violent, decisive action. We
As
were
you said,
taking it.
we're good at being cops.
Yeah. We were taking it to the bad guy. No, you blade your body, you're getting dropped. I'm not waiting for you to swing on me. It was very proactive. We were doing hood drills, quick reaction drills. I borrowed heavily from the special ops community. I took that mandate serious. We are not going to go to funerals because bad guys win. And as far as I said, people would kind of look at me. I did 30 people, 30 deputies a day, you know, 4 days a week for 7 years. And we'd go on cycles, right? It was a big agency. And I'd say, we are not surviving. Take survival out of your vocabulary. You know who survives? Victims survive. We're winning.
Yeah.
We're winning. And I said, swift, violent, decisive action is going to keep you going home. It's going to keep you. And everybody's like, hey, does IA know? Internal Affairs aware of what you're? I go, yeah, yeah. They're sitting right next to you, by the way. And so, we did all this progressive training, and oddly enough, for the 8 years that I was in training, that I ran that unit, we didn't bury one deputy at the hands of a suspect. Now, I don't take credit for that. Empowering deputies to take care of themselves fixed that problem, right? Yeah. But during that time, Chris, at the end of the training day, all right, if I cut you loose, an hour early from training, I mean, there's usually an accident at the exit gate, right? From everybody trying to get out of,
Yeah. That flood.
right? That flood, right? But then inevitably, Chris, there'd be one or two guys hanging around.
Mm.
So I go, what's up? What are you doing? Do you need me to call a tow company? You need a jump? You got a flat? Why are you still here?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, the hands go to the face, the tears.
Mm.
They don't want to go home, brother.
Mm.
They'd rather be at work than be at home.
And they're the scary ones.
And so you say to yourself, I was that guy, by the way. I
Yeah.
was that guy.
Mm.
And you say to yourself, well, what's going on, brother? And who's got a problem with alcohol? Who's going through a divorce? Who's got a piece on the side? Who hates their life? Who? And so we started referring and spending a ridiculous amount of time getting guys services and pairing them up with mental health professionals and just sitting and listening for
Mm.
hours every week, trying to get guys to understand the importance of one, them staying in the game,
Mm.
and two, that the situation that they're in feels unique, like nobody else will understand, but we're all the same and we all go through the same thing. So that whole concept of letting them know that they weren't alone. And then, so that happened, Chris, every week for 7 years.
When was this? Was this in the 90s or early
No,
2000s?
this was in 2017,
Yeah.
2016.
When things started to shift a little bit, I feel in law
Yeah.
enforcement in general, people started
Yeah.
to talk a little bit more, which was which
Yeah.
is great.
Yeah. But and Chris, it was, they weren't coming in until it was just observation, right? And
Yeah.
so, which brings me to a point is, and I'm gonna digress for a minute.
Yeah, that's
Like
good. Go.
when you ask somebody, hey, how you doing? Can I swear? Is
Yeah, you can.
vulgarity
Yeah, I
allowed?
swear. We're cops here, man.
All right. If you're gonna ask somebody how they're doing, you better fucking stop. You better stop and listen, because this is what we do. Hey, how you good? All right, man. All right, check you later. Right? And people that are in pain, want to talk. They want to tell you. But if you don't give them that 10-second pause to register that you actually give a shit about them, the conversation doesn't happen and they stay in pain.
They
And
also
so,
they also
yeah,
sorry, I'm just gonna jump in there real quick because
please.
I'm a huge advocate for this of speaking your goddamn truth
Yes.
and being willing to listen to somebody else's.
Yeah.
I remember when I don't want to put the fault on any of my bosses or my senior or anything, but I remember in the end, I went to my senior after going to counseling, after almost having a divorce, almost cheating on my wife. I went to him, I went, I got this going on. I feel like I might need to go to motorways. I want to do this. I might even need some leave without pay because I got X, Y, and Z going on. And I watched his eyes go, oh fuck.
Hmm.
Go, oh shit. Like, oh crap. Because at the time, our police force isn't armed here 24/7. We got guns in the cars, but I was diplomatic protection. Anytime I was operational, I was with a VIP with a gun on my head.
Right.
And so,
Sure.
yes, I can understand it now, but at the time, by him doing that and then saying, "I need you to go to," and I was like, "No, I saw it in his eyes. No, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm good to be working. I'm fine when I'm here at work. It's just every other time my mind starts going." And he's like, "I need you to go see the welfare person." He literally palmed it off and didn't take a moment to go, how can I help you?
Yeah.
And
Problem could have been resolved with a
instantly I sat
conversation.
there. Yeah, instantly I sat there and I went, "These guys don't care about me."
You're like, that was a mistake.
Yeah, because now I'm being judged by him. And my biggest thing is
That's a
not wanting to be
mistake.
judged.
Oh God. Yeah.
And so
That's your point. Yeah.
to your point, if you sit there, if you ask somebody how they're doing, don't use it. So many we uses it as a conversation filler these days.
Oh.
How are you doing? Yeah, I'm good. And you're expecting that response. If somebody says, "Yeah, I'm good," go, "Oh, how are you good?" Don't ask somebody how you're doing unless you want to dig deeper into it. And if somebody asks you, tell the bloody truth.
yeah, I had a guy. So I've been putting my program onto agencies all around the country,
Yeah.
and my old agency invited me back. And they said, "Can you put it on for all the sergeants, all the lieutenants, all the cap?" I did like 17 classes for them.
Wow.
And I saw a kid that he worked for me, And he came in and, head was down and, I'm like, what's up? How you doing? And I didn't leave. Like I stood there in front of him and he looked at me. He goes, you really want to know? I go, brother, I wouldn't have asked you if I didn't want to know. He goes, well, my wife's been battling cancer for the last year. I don't know fucking whether she's going to live or die. And he, right. And so he emailed me later that night about the importance of me. Like it validated everything that I was talking about. The importance of me being present with him. Like the class started 10 minutes late. I'm like, y'all can fucking wait.
I'm
me and
busy
Greg are
here.
having, yeah,
This
me
is
and
more
Greg are
important
having,
than
yeah, me and Greg are having a conversation, and it reinforced for me the importance of caring. And if you're gonna ask somebody, be in a position to listen, right? And it's not a pleasantry in meeting somebody. It's because again, he was in so much pain that I didn't solve any problems for him that day, but I lightened the load. Yeah. I took a little weight off his shoulders that day just by listening. Yeah. And that's powerful, I think.
Yeah, very powerful, man. Very powerful. So tell us more about how you started creating this program as you came out.
Right. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, that's fine. So, we both went off on things and
right.
It's excellent. Like I know for myself, you and I are on the same page here. We're all about the prevention side. We know that there's a ton of people out there that are helping those that are like hitting that rock bottom. And it sounds like you hit that, and I know we'll talk about that. I hit that. It's why this podcast is here. Why I do everything that I do. And so we have a lot of similar correlations going on here, which is amazing. And that's why it's this conversation is just going to keep getting better. I have a feeling.
Yeah, man. And Chris, so I have that epiphany, right? That I'm in. And so, but then I go to there's a change in command. We stop burying guys. Command gets amnesia, right? Because they figured we fixed a problem, that it wasn't something that we needed to maintain. So I see the writing on the wall. I go to my last assignment, which was the motor unit, and that was a great assignment. But
what made you decide to go to motors?
Honestly, get out of training? I was getting beat up physically. So we would do I would roll with 25 guys a day. Wow. And some guys, even though it's training, we try to make it very real, but some guys would absolutely fucking lose their minds and forget that I wasn't really trying to kill them, So inevitably, man, cracked ribs. And, there was a point, Chris, where I'd come home and my wife would look at me and I'd be bloodied, man, and, she'd just say, please tell me you have an exit strategy. I was in my 40s at that time. And so I was in awesome shape and in great conditioning, but she had to literally help me get out of a chair. So physically, I was getting it was a really bad recipe.
Physically, you were burning out.
I couldn't do it. I love to do it, right? The mind was like, yeah, every day, but it was taking its toll physically. So the motor unit was always one of those units that I wanted before I retired. Yeah. And it was very prestigious, part of a lot, part of a lot of work closely with the Secret Service, a lot of ceremonial things to it. And so that was my final assignment. And then when I exited, I was just like, I've got way too much work to do to just walk away. And then I said, so why can't I be the voice that says we don't need to be training guys on handcuffing, right? They can throw the handcuffs on somebody, right? I don't care how they go on, just put them on, right? Why can't I be the guy that teaches and sheds light on your personal, professional, financial, physical, and mental health? Why can't I be that guy? Because right now, there's nobody doing it. Mm. And so that was how I started the program. I sat back and I said, these areas, personal, professional, financial, physical, and mental health, all these areas impact not only our personal lives, but our professional lives, and they're all intertwined. And so we don't talk about it. We don't train about it. We won't talk about the number one. So we're clear. The number one killer of cops is suicide.
Every year
Right.
in the
So
US, the numbers come out in the US. I don't know what they are here in New Zealand because we don't talk about suicide here. They
right.
literally
Well, you
won't
know
release
what?
numbers.
If it's anything like the US, for every bad guy that kills a cop in the US, 2 to 3 take their own life. Statistical fact. It's not
No, you can
hyperbole. It's
find
not
this. You can
conjecture.
find the stats online. I could look it up right
Right.
now and find the stats that we know about. I'm
And
gonna preemphasize this all. The stats
yeah,
that you see are what we know about.
right.
How many are
That's
out
what
there that
gets
are
reported.
retired? And yeah, that's what
Oh,
gets
well, that's
reported.
no, Chris, to your point, that's not officers that are under investigation, recently separated from the agency, retired. That
That's
doesn't
current, still sworn
current,
in,
still
still have a
employed.
job. Yeah.
Right. When you look at the numbers, the numbers increase exponentially when you add those two other categories. So the number one killer of cops is suicide. With that being said, 50% of those suicides, Chris, is the result of a breakup or a divorce. So listen, we know the number one killer of cops is suicide. We know of those suicides, half of them, the underlying cause is a divorce or a breakup of a relationship. And we don't do a damn thing about it, brother.
You know the other thing that we know? Police have the highest divorce rate out of any career.
When we intentionally dismantle the one source, one structure that we can go back to for wellness, we intentionally dismantle it. The one support network that we rely on when things get dark, we destroy. And then we wonder why everybody sits back and looks up and oh, how did this happen? Oh, so we don't do any training on relationship building. We don't do any training on how to communicate with our spouses so they don't think that we're just an asshole, that we actually don't want to infect them with all the bullshit that we've seen. We don't do any talk about fiscal, something as simple as fiscal responsibility. See, because what ends up happening is when you start living beyond your means, you start working more overtime and details. And when you work more overtime and details, that's less time for you to be at home. And when you're not at home, a wedge gets created between you and your spouse. And then so we create our own problems by not addressing small problems.
When you're away from your loved one, whether it be physically, like you're on the other side of the country, or emotionally, there becomes a void and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. You have to be in the proximity of the person that you love, otherwise that love will disappear. You have to be always communicating, or the person doesn't know what's going on and doesn't feel connected to you. And without connection, humans are designed to have connection, physical, emotional. And you're right. We don't train it. My belief, a lot of it. I'd love to know your thought, John, on this. With doing so long in law enforcement, doing a lot of this prevention side of stuff. My belief is that most cops, when they become a police officer, don't actually even know who they are. They don't know their true why, purpose of their life, and in turn they know what has been projected onto them by their parents, by their friends, by their upbringing, but not actually truly what they want or who they truly are as a individual self. And so end up putting this mask of who they believe they need to be a police officer. I need to be that SWAT guy. I need to be that badass. I need to be that staunch, masculine A-type personality, whether I'm male or female.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the other, not knowing who you are is a terrible thing. And trying. See, and I think what happens is we're like Pavlov's dog. We get conditioned over time. And so what ends up happening, I would argue that you know who you are when you enter this profession. That's where I would kind of disagree with you a little bit.
Sorry, I would agree with you. When you first enter, you have a subconscious idea of who you are, not a conscious one.
Right. And I think you have an idea of self. You're a servant. You
Yeah.
want to genuinely help people and protect people.
Yeah.
And then I think that there's a shift that takes place because what we end up doing is we start closing off our circle to only be around guys that are on the job. And so if you're not on the job, we don't associate with you. And so like I have a thing, like when crazy becomes normal, there's nobody left in the room to check you. Right. And so if all of our friends are cops and we're all knuckleheads doing stupid things and we
Saying
insulate
stupid things.
ourselves, yes. And that people that are the friends we had before we became cops would check us and go, "What? Why would you do that? That's stupid, or you're an idiot, or
Why would you say that?
right, right? Why would you be so right?" And so instead of we isolate, we no longer associate with them. Then we surround ourselves with people that accept unacceptable behavior because
Don't challenge us.
in order for them to check you, they have to check themselves, and that's never going to happen, right? So then we start to become this paper mache version of who we really are. It looks really tough and amazing, but once you put a little pressure on it, it crumbles. It shatters, man. It can't hold up. And what doesn't hold up to the stress is the reality. The day you realize you've been living a lie. And that's a tough pill to swallow, man. Because along the way, we tell ourselves, listen, when I say we, I'm going to make assumptions that I'm not too different from anybody else out there, that I'm just, the only thing that sets me apart may be my willingness to admit when I failed horribly and that I'm okay talking about it. But I think we all have a very similar story of failure and self-sabotage. And so when we no longer accept unacceptable behavior, when we have that epiphany and we call ourselves out, it is life altering. First, not in a good way, because I don't know about you, but there were times in my life that I absolutely hated the person looking back in the mirror. Absolutely hated that person.
I struggled to look in the mirror, brother.
Ashamed of the person.
I didn't like what I was doing on the job. I didn't like
No.
how I was reacting to things. I didn't like how,
I didn't like
especially in
person.
the end. But I wouldn't admit it. Oh,
Right.
I would not admit it.
No. And so, when you get to that place, the room gets dark, man. The room gets really dark really quick. And so, knowing who you are and finding your way back to that person, I have a saying, Chris, things don't get messed up overnight, so they don't get fixed overnight.
You used to roll with guys. How many injuries did you get that took a split second, but how long did it take to
right,
heal?
no doubt.
Some of these things come along, like we were talking about this before. We were talking about cold plunges and stuff and how important they are physically and the science behind it all, but then also mentally. You're talking about your joints. I got a back injury, man, that is not just from one thing. It's from doing stupid shit over and over and over again.
Of course.
And now it still takes forever to heal up. And it's so right. These things don't happen overnight and they don't heal overnight, but there are things like what you're teaching, what I'm teaching, that help collapse that time down.
Absolutely.
I love the fact that you brought up the thing about the people we hang around with. I'm sure that you've read it or you know of it. I can't remember the author's name, but Emotional Survival for Law Enforcement.
Gil Martin.
Yeah, that's the one. I have it over here somewhere.
Right.
I remember when I was in my darkest times, we did a ride along with the sheriff's department in my home county in Northern California. And the cop, like I was telling him kind of a little bit about what was going on. It was the first time I really opened up to another cop about it. I think it was because
Mhm.
I didn't actually know him from a bar of soap and
Right.
somehow connected with him. And he told me, hey, I've actually gone through some stuff with that as well. He's like, I read that. And in that book, when I was reading it, first of all, I was sitting there like, this is a couple years after I got out of law enforcement. I was like, yelling to my wife in the other room, like reading it at night before. Like, I don't read very much, but I just could not pull
Sure.
myself from it. Going, was this me? And she's like, yep. You'd come home
Yeah.
and you'd sit in front of the TV and
Right.
you couldn't tell me what you were watching, but you also couldn't react to anything. But the one thing that he said in there that really resonated with me that you even said is the people that you hang around with. And since leaving, I've done a lot of different stuff, different self-development programs and that as well, learning different things to help others. And the biggest thing is proximity. You
Mm.
become the average of the people that you hang around with. The 7 people you hang around with the most, you become the average of.
Right.
So if we're hanging around with hard, cynical, negative people,
Alcohol abusing.
alcohol abusing, but let's not even take the people that we work with. Let's take
Right.
the people that we interact with
Sure. Sure.
40 to 70 hours a week.
Right. Yeah. No
Who are
doubt.
we hanging
Yeah.
around with most of the
Yeah.
time?
Yeah. Not the
We're hanging around
brightest bulbs in the
criminals, we're
box.
hanging around bums,
Yeah.
drug
Yeah.
addicts, these things. We start to think it's normal. We
Yeah.
start to think this is just who people are. And what's the common thing that cops say? Society's broken. There's evil people everywhere. I need to sit with my back to the wall and face to the door
Right.
because bad people are going to come and get me. Well, we hang around that proximity. That drastic shift of making sure that you have those people around you, like, like ourselves or just those friends that you had outside. I remember being told in the beginning of my career,
Right.
keep your friends that you have outside. It's like, I'm not from this country. I don't have that many friends.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But
No doubt.
it's so true. Having that thing, having those, but then also, just to have that check, that reality check of bringing yourself back to who you were or who you actually truly are.
Sure. No,
Um,
it's easy to lose your way if you're not
yes,
careful,
yes,
you
very.
know.
What would you say, John, is your kind of top, I don't know, 2 tips or 2 things that you teach or that you like would do if you could rewind to keep that
So
person?
at the end of the day, I don't think we ever spend enough time alone. And and there's a balance, right? There's a dichotomy to everything that we do.
Explain alone real quick because I know like my mind instantly went to like here in New Zealand we run 2 up, so we're not alone. But I know in the
Right.
US a lot of places run
Right.
soul up. So there could be that thing of, hey, wait a second, I'm on my own all the time. What are you talking about?
So for whatever reason, and just walk with me through this, all right?
Okay.
Because I want to figure this out together. Okay. Alone. I think we can have a tendency to not be okay being alone. If you can't stand to be with yourself, why would anybody else want to be with you? So where I'm walking with you with this is self-care and self-love. That a lot of times we surround ourselves with other people and put ourselves in situations to fill the vacancy and the voids that reside within us. And so when I mean being alone, be okay with who you are in that moment. Be present with you in that moment and in all your imperfections and love that person. And that becomes hard to do when we put weight on the opinions of others, when we are constantly bombarded by social media and political opinions and what we're supposed to be. And, we're never smart enough. We're never strong enough. We're never big enough. We're never handsome enough. We're never. And so I think there's a detrimental effect to us not being okay being alone. Um, and so one of the things that I would say is explore that. Go for a walk by yourself. Go to a waterfall. Right? by yourself or bring a friend, and and be okay with the stillness and the silence. I have a friend that always has, you know, events and always is doing things with other couples and is always having other, you know, and I think that that busyness is a way to cope with not being okay being alone. And so I would say first come to peace with that, that it's okay to be alone, that be okay with yourself. Be good with the person looking back in the mirror. And once you can do that, right, everything you can let everything else in, but that can't happen until you're good with that person looking back in the mirror. Um, and that just goes hand in hand with the second part of that would be, you know, making yourself a priority in a profession that gives and cares more about total strangers than we do ourselves. We need to have the balance, and we don't. We are consumed with fixing others at the expense of ever addressing our own personal health and development. So, you know, making self-care, doing things for you. It's not selfish, right? It's self-care. I asked sometimes when I have clients, you know, we'll do an introductory call or a Zoom meeting or whatever. And I said, well, you know, run me through your day, you know, from the time that you get up to the time that you go to bed. And without exception, you know, then my question was, can you point to something in that day that you just outlined for me that you do for you? Silence.
Mm.
You don't do anything for you. You do everything for everybody else. And that's a problem. It's a problem. So
It's,
self-care, making yourself a priority and being okay with you being you.
it's interesting you say that, because as a cop, I don't know about you, but as a cop, I used to say going to the range was for me.
Right.
I used to say going to the gym was for me. I used to say going for a run was for me. But the underlying language and the underlying focus for it was actually for work.
Mm,
I'm going to the gym
yeah.
so that I can chase that bad guy. I'm going to the gym so I'm
Right.
stronger for work. I'm going to the range so that I can come home at the end of the day.
Right.
I
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing to recognize as well, that the intention behind your things is the things that you do as well.
Right. They don't need to be mutually exclusive. Like
No, they don't.
you can go to the gym because you get this endorphin release and this amazing high, and subsequently, if you're stronger, you're
It's
also
better for
able to
work.
handle yourself better at work, right?
The byproduct of
Yes,
it
but you're I
is
think you're
for work.
spot on there with
Yeah.
mentally where the reference and the point of reference needs to be is I'm doing this for my own
Mhm.
personal development and mental wellness. And a side benefit
Yeah.
is going to be X,
Because
Y, and Z.
the languages that we use, our mind focuses on, and where our mind focuses on, it goes to. And so then otherwise the gym ends up. I remember at one stage, I'm a gym junkie, man. I don't know about you, but it sounds like you
Yeah,
probably the same. We love
yeah,
to train. It's just it's a safe place for us, as an anchoring place,
sure.
as a place of development. But I remember I got to a stage where I was burned out on the gym because I had been
Yeah,
training so hard to get into our version of SWAT team. And it was all about, I'm training for this. It's not, I'm training to go do this. And the byproduct is, yes, it's meeting my goal of getting into
right.
our version of SWAT. But it was, I have to go train, because if I don't go train, then I can't get into SWAT, or what we call AOS.
So what once was enjoyable and
Becomes
a
not.
release is now, you know, a mandatory requirement
Yeah.
that has all the weight that goes with something that's
Yeah.
mandatory
Yeah. Yeah.
because you framed it that way. Wow.
Yeah. It's all the framing, because our mind doesn't actually know the difference. Like,
Right.
it was funny. This kind of refers to the same thing. My sister-in-law, for during Christmas, I was down seeing her in that, and she actually randomly out of the blue was like, or I think I said like, "Oh, that grass is really green or something." And she's like, "Well, how do you know it's green?" I was like, "Well, it's green." And she's like, "Well, how do you know that I don't actually see it as what you see as blue? I don't see that as, it's not the grass isn't actually blue, but I've been told that it's green. So I'm actually seeing it as what you see blue as, but I see it as green." but I see, like, does that make sense? So like
Dude, are you doing some sort of Jedi mind thing with
that's
me
what I
right
mean
now,
though.
bro?
That's what I mean though. Our mind,
Right.
we tell our mind what we want.
Sure. Of
It's
course.
that whole,
Of
like,
course.
the manifestation type thing that you hear around a lot.
Right. Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
you're
yeah.
not manifesting it. What you're doing is you're making your mind believe that you can actually get it, that you can
Right.
actually do it. Then you take action towards it. It's like when you buy a new car. I use this reference all the time. When you buy a new car that you've been wanting, or you start to focus on a car that you want, all of a sudden they're fucking everywhere.
Yeah, right.
It's
No
not
doubt.
that
No doubt.
all of a sudden people bought more. It's because your mind is now looking
Sure. Your
for it.
mind's being more aware of that
Yeah.
now that it's something.
It's just like police. When you first become a cop, you're like, holy crap, I didn't even see that threat. And somebody else is saying that that threat was there. After
Right.
a couple of years of being vigilant, of looking for the threat, now all of
Yeah.
a sudden you can pick them up without even looking for them.
Yeah. No doubt. No doubt.
And it can become a dangerous thing, or it can become a very powerful thing with awareness and with doing it. So yeah, I just wanted to, I thought that was quite relevant to what we were saying. So John, I know that you mentioned earlier on your why. I'm a huge, massive why guy, knowing your why and what drives you. My belief, and from research and from doing stuff with people, is that it's actually planted when you're very young, when you're like 6 or 7, because of something that's happened when you're developing in those early ages. But I always like to ask on these podcasts what people feel their why is, that has driven them, not just with what they do now, but has been that underlying subconscious emotional driver their entire life. What do you believe
You
your
know,
why is, John?
and I think it's going to be very typical. It's a very typical response. At the end of the day, righting wrongs and protecting those that can't protect themselves, that was ingrained in me at a very young age. And so, you seek out a career or profession that allows you to answer that. And so that was the initial why. And then, taking care of others, right? But, that's tricky, right? Because you take care of others, you can become so obsessive about that, taking care of others, that you never take care of yourself. And so after coming to that, that realization about having that balance, and why a lot of people in the first responder community get into that job, like you would mention, it can be traced back to some childhood trauma or some incidents, and because you want to protect and not have what happened to you happen to somebody else. But then once I exited, the why became even more significant, because I feel, Chris, that we're morally obligated to share our experiences with each other, the good and the bad, because I think that by doing that, we lighten the burden that each of us carries. And that isn't that, I mean, it's about caring. Like, I don't have to like you, Chris, right? I do. I don't have to like you though, but I do have to care about you, brother. I got to care about you. And I think we've over time have forgotten that very basic principle that, we don't need to break bread. We don't need to like each other. But as human beings, we need to care for each other. I want nothing but the best for you, man. I want you to be safe. I want you to be prosperous. I don't want you to ever want. And whatever that means for you, that's what I want for you. But we have gotten it so twisted. Um, and that liking and caring, well, if I don't like you, fuck you. You're dead to me. Whoa, 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 stop, stop. And I think when that's the platform that we use to interact with people, I mean, here in the States, we've got half the country absolutely hating the other half of the country over a political philosophy. It's so disheartening, Chris. And people, you don't want to talk about racial tensions. We don't have racial. You know what we have human tensions. We you can't. It has taken on a whole new dimension where I don't like you because of a belief system. Not that you've ever done anything to me.
Yeah.
And it just goes. It's just so disheartening. And you know, there are people a heck of a lot smarter than me trying to figure out how we get back to a place, where we care for each other. We can't even have conversations here in the States without people absolutely losing their mind.
Mm.
And, you know, um, there's a huge disconnect on that human level. And I'm hopeful, right? I'm hopeful that we can get back to a place of caring. But at the end of the day, there's a moral obligation that if you're going to walk this earth, you need to care about the other people walking it with you.
I'm glad you brought that up because it is that, and around the, protecting and that, yeah, as law enforcement, we all have a sense of that we want to protect those that can't. Well, it's said a lot. We protect those that can't protect themselves. I believe that everybody can protect themselves if they want to, but we are there to uphold the law and protect people from those that don't want to, that want to cause harm.
Mm-hmm.
But even those that want to cause harm, like you said, I might not like you. I might not like the fact that you did that very nasty thing. And as cops, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, whatever that nasty thing is.
Right.
But I still need to care about you because that is why I'm here.
Right.
I don't need to like you. I don't need to like the person that just murdered 6 people or the person that just did that mass shooting, but I still got to care about you to a sense that you're still a human.
Right.
And if you've done enough, like, you and I, it sounds like we've done a lot of deep work on ourselves, that you recognize that, yes, there's psychopaths out there. I'm not going to get you wrong. There are psychopaths
Yeah, of
out there,
course.
but none of us are born evil.
Sure.
None
Sure.
of us are born as that person that is going to go out and be a mass
Yeah,
shooter.
we ultimately become products of our environment, right? So something
Exactly.
something shaped. And listen, I am the farthest thing, from this kumbaya and everybody, right? But I think at the end of
there's
the
there's
day,
there's there's there is a what am I trying to say? There is a, I'm missing the word. When you do something wrong, there has to be a consequence. That's what I was trying to
oh,
say. There is a
100%.
consequence to your actions, but at the same time, we have to
Absolutely.
care about you to try and get you back to a place where
Yeah.
you're not going to do that.
Right. And Chris, I'll take it one step further and really the intent. So within the profession,
Hmm.
I don't know how it is across the wide divide there in New Zealand, but we demand support from the public, and when we don't get it, we're outraged, right?
Yep.
But do we support each other? Do we take care of each other? Do we have each other's back in this profession of ours, right? And
Say we
so
do, but I don't believe that we
I
actually
think we do a
do.
real shitty job at that, man. So I think that we eat our own here in the States.
Yeah.
You know,
You
we,
guys are you guys are worse, I think, worse than we are here at the moment.
I listen. I know it. I know it. And so we become incensed that the public is upset with us, but we don't have each other's back. We don't take care of each other, and I would argue that we need if you want somebody to care about you, you need to care about your own people first,
Yeah.
and we fail daily at that.
I
And
mean,
so
don't get me wrong, because I know there's going to be people that'll be like, oh, the people that aren't in law enforcement. Oh, but the whole, I think it's gotten a bad rap that we need to look after each other. At least this is my interpretation, my hallucination at this side. Tell me if it's wrong coming from being over there. But the
okay,
whole, we need to look after each other is not, we need to turn a blind eye, or we
oh
need,
God, no,
it is
yes,
we need to not necessarily go, oh yeah, that shooting was justified when we actually don't know the circumstances. But it's going,
right,
hey, I stand by my officers. We're going to do a thorough investigation. Yes, you will be investigated because it's just the process, but I
right,
stand by them. But if it comes out that they've done something wrong, well, yes, they will be prosecuted just like as if the badge does not matter, does not save you from doing
right.
something that you're not supposed to. But I still have my officers back, blah, blah, blah. That I believe is more what we're trying to say here, just to
Well,
kind
that
of
and Chris, not
clarify
even at that level. I'm just talking about our daily interactions with our
with
peers.
each other. Yeah.
I'm just that's really,
Again,
I
that
mean, listen,
asking how you doing, bro.
yeah, I mean, caring for each other.
Mm,
I think that that's so crucial that, and you know, I think the public may think that we're, we're tight, we're this, we're that, we're whole, eh, there's a, had a gentleman on my podcast over here in the States, Tom Rizzo, really great guy, man. Excellent leader, does a lot of leadership um, presentations. And he says, we don't have a recruiting hiring process that, a problem. We have a toxicity problem
mm.
in our agencies. And so, his belief is that, who would want to join an organization and an environment that eats their own? Like, we create our own problems. And so I think there's it's a valid um, observation that if we want support from the outside, we need to support from the inside first. That
Mm.
at the end of the day, caring for leadership, caring for its people, not even going at the mic during a critical incident. I'm just talking about instituting a wellness program that actually matters. Like,
And not being lip
it
service.
right, actually being invested in the health and well-being of your people. That when somebody raises their hand and goes, you know what, I'm having a problem over here, that we don't treat them like a liability and actually embrace them and say, we're going to do whatever we can to get you the help that you need.
Yeah.
We're not going to reassign you. We're not going to take your gun. We're not going to, all we want is for you to be healthy.
Yeah.
That's what the rank and file want. They want, listen, you know, we're not all one big happy family. You got one family and it's at home. All right. So when we start believing that, the organization has my back, and listen, it's a fallacy, right? I've been invested. I've had my badge taken from me 3 times in my 30-year career. Right. And I consider myself an excellent employee. 3 times they took my badge. All right.
You're doing a good job. You're gonna have something
Yeah. Right.
happen.
But my point is, I wasn't shocked when they did. I wasn't like they're this betrayal. But there's people that actually think,
Yeah.
they call it organizational betrayal. There's a name for it. And I go, well, you know what? That's you dumbass. Why did you ever think that they wouldn't?
Well, it's that whole thing of, civilians get pissed off at law enforcement for arresting them
Right.
for the laws, and then cops get pissed off at IA or the hierarchy
Right.
for then investigating and upholding the laws as well.
Right.
Why?
Well, I
We're
think the
doing it.
outrage comes.
It comes
The
from going
outrage
over
comes.
from going over the top.
Yeah. Well, the outrage comes from when it's politically motivated,
Yeah.
and it's based on emotions and not facts. That's
Yeah.
that's the rub.
Which,
But,
which, in all honesty, is fair enough, and civilians
Right.
should be doing the same. Civilians do the same exact thing in that,
Exactly.
and this is where, if we circle all the way back,
Right.
taking care of each other, taking care of yourself, you
Right.
don't react emotionally, you react logically. When
Right.
the emotional state comes from not being secure and strong in yourself.
Right. No doubt. No doubt. Look at that.
You think about the anger. You think about the anger. The
Right.
anger. How many cops are angry?
Right.
Anger is an emotional response to not being happy with something. Most of the time, it comes from within ourselves. If you're not happy with it, I haven't been angry since I left the
99.9% of the
police and
time.
I did all the work that I've done on myself. I haven't been angry.
Right. Right.
Don't need it.
Yeah. It doesn't.
I
It
used,
doesn't.
I used to
It's
justify
funny
my
when you
anger. I
mention
used to
that.
just say, I've got an anger issue and it's okay.
Right.
No,
And
I wasn't happy with myself.
this serenity prayer comes in. Are you familiar with the serenity prayer?
No.
All right. So it goes like this: God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, right?
Mm.
The courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, right? And so what ends up happening is, for the vast majority of our career, we're angry about things that we cannot change, right? We get consumed with it, right? And the things that are completely within our reach, Chris, the things that we could change today, we pass on. We don't take that initiative, right? And so we stay angry about the things we cannot change. We never come to the realization about the things that we have control over, and that wisdom to know the difference. Sometimes that's granted upon us, eventually, but for some people never.
Mm,
And that just keeps us in that dark, angry place.
yep. Oh, so right. So many people want to control things that have no ability to control and lose sight of the things that they actually have control of.
And that's the thing, right? I mean, we talk about you. I mean, there's adages out there, right? They're there for a reason. They're like
Mm.
stereotypes. There's some truth based in. It may not be politically correct, man, but when you say the Irish guy's an alcoholic, well, um, if your last name's Kelly, like mine, and you grew up in Boston, you're an alcoholic, and that's okay. It's funny, right? It's not offensive. It's just the way it is. So
It's a pattern of history. You look
right.
back to when the
So
U.S. started. All those
yeah,
Irish guys came over. They had a Guinness
this
and
is
that.
what happens.
Yeah. What do you
Yeah.
think St. Patty's Day is?
Of
Just
course.
drinking.
They're not drinking milk on St. Patrick's Day, right? So, these situations they come about. And you taking ownership, right? Which
Mhm.
is part of that serenity prayer, you acknowledging that, all right, these are the things that I don't have control over, the things that I do. All right, then I can address. And there's a big disconnect when it comes to that,
I think there's
unfortunately.
a massive one. I also believe that there's a communication issue
Yeah, no
because your
doubt.
last name's Kelly. It could be that whole thing of everybody's like, oh, you must drink a lot.
Right.
And if
Eh,
you're not, again, if you don't have that thing of that self stuff,
right.
you're not confident in yourself, then you can't communicate. Oh, yeah, my last name is Kelly, but guess what? I actually don't drink that much.
Actually, I am an alcoholic. I haven't had a drink in 26 years.
But you know what? But you
Right.
know what I mean.
Right.
If
No,
you are
exactly.
secure, if you're secure in yourself,
You don't have to
circling back to
become the
everything,
stereotype.
you don't have to become the stereotype. And I think that's the biggest thing that we're seeing right now in law enforcement and things towards law enforcement is that my hallucination that I'm seeing from the outside, just my interpretation, and tell me if you think I'm completely off off the map here, but cops don't know who they are. They
Yeah.
don't
It
they
comes. Yeah.
they don't have that grounding of that confidence in this is who I am, this is what I stand for, and this is what I do, because it's gotten
Right.
lost. No fault of their own, but it's gotten lost by the departments, by the media, by the public, by everything. And you and I, this is why I'm grateful for what you're doing, because you're doing similar things as me, helping officers get back to that
Yeah.
from the ground up,
Yeah.
so
That
that then
moral
they can stand
compass, the
strong and they can be
reason.
like,
Yeah.
hey, yes, that person did wrong. That was one of
Yeah.
the most beautiful things that came out of in the beginning, that came out of the George Floyd thing. So many cops going, yeah,
Yeah. Well,
he
it's
shouldn't have been on his
unacceptable.
neck that long. He shouldn't have
Right.
been on him that long, no matter what.
Right.
The rallying of no, that's not right, because they sat in that.
Right.
Who actually are we? We don't stand for. We're here to
Right.
protect everybody, whether you're a criminal, whether you're an offender or not.
Right. Oh yeah. No. No. You're
And
you're you're spot on. You're
and
spot on with that.
yeah, and I feel like I love the work that we're both doing, because we're helping people come back to that, the roots of why we do this profession in the first place. I say
Right.
this all the time. It's the best job in the world, the hardest job in the world,
Right.
but it is the best and most rewarding job in the world
100%.
when done from that place.
Yeah. It doesn't have to. We sometimes make it more difficult than it needs to be.
Yeah, we do. That's human nature, though, isn't it, brother?
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately. Yeah, man.
So I know we talked a bit about the book. There's been a lot of different stuff that I know has come from the book, just kind of really quickly skimming through. And that, how do people get a copy of it, or how do people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about you and what you do, and how they can become that
Chris,
better
thank
version?
you. Yeah, man. Thank you so much. So the book is on Amazon. It's Surviving Self-Inflicted Wounds: A Deputy's Life of Redemption. And I have in the book, after each chapter, there's a place, there's some questions and a little place for reflection. it's really doubling down. Listen, alcoholic, addict, adulterer. You know, I actually did destroy my marriage with my wife, um, and I was able to, with a lot of hard work and you know,
Me as well.
painful process, man. We're together 28 years in March, right?
Congratulations, man.
Despite my best efforts to destroy my marriage, my
Yeah.
wife wouldn't let that happen, right? So
On that, real quick, I just want to ask: are you
yeah.
stronger now than you were before?
Oh, 10
From the very
times. Well,
beginning?
because it was inevitable.
Yeah.
It was inevitable. My complete lack of communication. I was at every turn, I placed a wedge in our relationship that pushed us further and further apart. My doing, and this was inevitable. It was going to happen, and I've learned so much since then. That can be a topic for another podcast, brother, because we can dive
We
deep
both
on
have
that.
very strong, and here to our loved one, like our wives, because mine as well. Like I
Yeah,
love
man.
how stubborn and how driven my wife is, because we would not be together right now. The
Oh,
counselor told us our first session after I almost cheated on her. She
yeah,
told us the first session, she's like, where you guys are sitting at right now, which sounds like where you guys got as well towards the end, like towards that time. The counselor said 80 to 85% of people that are sitting where you guys are right now will not make it.
right. Yeah, no, I actually did have the affair, and it was absolutely insane. And uh, talk about suicidal ideation and hating yourself and wanting to kill yourself. Those were all places that I visited,
Hmm.
and she's the only reason why I'm still here. So, uh, yeah, it was. We'll talk more about it, man. It's
Yeah,
a
we'll do
deep
another one.
dive, bro. It's a deep dive,
Yeah.
but yeah, man. So the book's on Amazon. If you my website, lawenforcementlifecoach.com,
Law enforcement life coach
lawenforcementlifecoach.com.
com.
I've got, links to the book, the podcast, what I'm doing, trying to help people. I do a lot of coaching. Not as successful as you at coaching, but I do some coaching and just trying to help guys get through some, so if a guy falls in the hole, I try to help him get out of it, try to show him how to get out of it. And if they're walking about, I try to keep them from falling into the hole.
Yeah.
I try to keep the slide from becoming an avalanche,
Yeah.
and that's the goal.
That's amazing, man. Well, I'm grateful for everything that you're doing. Keep doing it. And thank you for that. Uh, last question I always ask: what is your top tip to self happiness?
You got to live a life that allows you to love you. You got to live a life that allows you to love you. You got to be a good person, man. You
Mm,
got to love unconditionally. You got to care as much as you care about yourself. You got to care about people that can give you nothing in return.
mm.
I think that's
Live,
it, man.
live from the contribution, not from the significance.
I think so.
Mm, agree, man. I love it. I love it. Any last words that you want to say, John? Anything you want
Nah,
to?
you got me all jacked up at the end there, man. Going back into that place,
I know it's
I'm just blessed. I'm grateful. I'm thankful for you. Thank you for having this conversation with me. Listen, man, this is the first day conversation of many conversations, and I'm excited to have you in my life right now. And I think that that's going to be awesome.
I appreciate you, man, and it's great to connect. I love, this last 2022 for me was all about connection. It was
Yeah,
all
man.
about that was my year, man. And I've met some amazing people like yourself. I know we're in the beginning of 2023 now, but the people that I have met through just having these conversations and being
Yeah,
open and vulnerable and actually just laying it out there, like we said, just laying it out there and not with
yeah,
any
man.
expectation in return.
No,
Man, it's a special breed that come into this
yeah.
profession, and yeah, we need law enforcement
Yeah.
because the world will not survive without it. And
No,
so
man, I think
I love
it's
what we're
how we
doing.
become better, man. It's how we become better.
It is.
Better today than we were yesterday, man.
Yeah, that's the one. Well, thank you everybody for listening. Thank you, John, for being here. Thanks for taking the time out of your day and for opening up and being vulnerable and telling all your story and your tips and tricks. And we will do another episode on our significant other ones, because it sounds like we have a similar story there.
Looking forward to it.
And for everybody that is still listening, watching, thank you. Make sure you share this with somebody that you know could resonate with it, can relate to it. Maybe they're law enforcement, maybe they're a spouse of law enforcement, maybe they're just a first responder, maybe they're just a civilian. Share it out there, because this is how we make a change. This is how people grow. They listen to other people's stories and connect with them in some way and take something away. Till next time, thank you. Make sure you like, subscribe, and we will see you on the other side. My motto is always train hard, test easy, because we're always going to be tested, so we may as well train for them.